गलत है वो जो कहते हैं यार यू मीन नो सॉरी, नो थैंक यू।
मृत्यु मरता काम करता जो चंडाल
काम कर, कुछ भी काम मत कर, वो सब तो बोलना ही नहीं है आपको।
तू ये मेरी लंबी उम्र के लिए कर रही है ना?
हाँ, वाला ही छेड़ते हो आप।
अच्छा मैं तो समझ गया तेरी बात। तू एक बात नहीं समझी, करवा चौथ के दिन कुछ खाते नहीं है।
तो कहाँ खा क्यों मम्मी? पार्लर वाली 50 रुपए में रेडी करती है, मुझे बता लो। गिफ्ट लाने में भी कर लेते।
माइक्रोमैक्स ने लॉन्च कर दिए हैं दो नए स्मार्टफोन, एक है माइक्रोमैक्स इन नोट 1 और दूसरा है माइक्रोमैक्स इन 1B। जो प्राइसिंग रखी है माइक्रोमैक्स ने वो काफ़ी अच्छी लगी, पर्सनली मुझे काफ़ी पसंद आया। जो भी प्राइस रखी गई है यहाँ पे और जैसे स्पेक्स आपको मिलते हैं, डेफिनेटली कहूँगा काबिल तारीफ है। बट मेरे कुछ सवाल है, कुछ अंदर की बातें हैं, कुछ डाउट है जो मैं क्लियर करना चाहूँगा और ये चीज़ें आपको भी पता होनी चाहिए। लेकिन उससे पहले चलिए सबसे पहले हम बात कर लेते हैं इन दोनों स्मार्टफोन के बारे में, उसके बाद हम कुछ ऐसे अंदर की बातें के बारे में मैं आपको बताने वाला हूं, बात करने वाला है, डिस्कस करने वाले हैं। एंड आई एम प्रीटी श्योर आपके मन में भी ये सवाल जरूर आएगा। तो सबसे पहले जो स्मार्टफोन है वो है इन नोट 1, जिसकी प्राइस है 10,999 रुपीज बेस वेरिएंट के लिए, और इसमें आपको 6.67 इंच की एक FHD प्लस ओ नॉच वाली डिस्प्ले मिलती है। सो यार मुझे माइक्रोमैक्स की ये चीज काफी अच्छी लगी कि चलो यार माइक्रोमैक्स ने कमबैक किया है और इस प्राइस पॉइंट पे आपको एक FHD प्लस फुल HD प्लस वाली डिस्प्ले आपको प्रोवाइड कर रहा है। मतलब कंपटीशन के हिसाब से मैं कहूंगा काफी बढ़िया है। फोन के अगर आप डिजाइन को देखोगे तो कुछ आपको एक्स फैक्टर वाला यहां पर डिजाइन देखने को मिलता है, और अगर आपने Honor 9X स्मार्टफोन को मिल जाएगा और आप बोलोगे यस ये कॉपी नहीं है, विच इज गुड, अच्छी बात है कि चलो कैमरा कटआउट आपको थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस देखने को मिल जाता है। बट आप दोनों के पैटर्न को देखोगे तो ये ऑलमोस्ट सेम है, आइडेंटिकल है। यहां पर इसके पीछे कुछ और बातें हैं, अंदर की बात है जो मैं आपके साथ शेयर करना चाहूंगा, वो मैं अभी आपको आगे वीडियो में शेयर करूंगा। लेकिन उससे पहले हम बात कर लेते हैं परफॉर्मेंस के बारे में, यानी कि प्रोसेसर के बारे में। तो ये फोन आता है दोस्तों MediaTek Helio G85 प्रोसेसर के साथ, जो कि नो डाउट काफी अच्छा प्रोसेसर है, पावरफुल प्रोसेसर है। इनफैक्ट अगर आप इसमें गेमिंग भी करना चाहते हो तो काफी अच्छी खासी गेमिंग कर सकते हो। नॉट एक्सीलेंट हार्डकोर गेमिंग नहीं कर सकते, बट या प्राइस पॉइंट के हिसाब से मतलब 11,000 के आसपास काफी अच्छा प्रोसेसर मैं कहूंगा, आपको परफॉर्मेंस काफी अच्छी मिलने वाली है अगर प्राइस पॉइंट के हिसाब से देखें। बाकी दोस्तों आपको रियर में 48 मेगापिक्सल का क्वाड कैमरा मिलेगा और 16 मेगापिक्सल का आपको सेल्फी कैमरा मिलेगा। तो यार देखो कैमरे के बारे में ऑन पेपर अच्छे दिखते हैं, बट टेस्ट करने के बाद ही मैं आपको ज्यादा डिटेल में बता पाऊंगा कि एक्चुअली में कैमरा कैसा है, एक्चुअली में रियर कैमरा सेल्फी कैमरा कैसा है। तो वो मैं आपको आने वाले वीडियो में बताऊंगा। तो देखते हैं, अगर जैसे ही मेरे पास फोन आता है तो मैं टेस्ट करूंगा, उसके बाद रिव्यू आप लोगों के साथ शेयर करूंगा। तो आप लोग रिव्यू देखना चाहते हो तो मुझे नीचे कमेंट करके जरूर बताओ। एंड हाँ, अगर आपको दोस्तों वीडियो पसंद आ रही है ना, जल्दी से यार लाइक कर दो। आई नो आपने कर दिया होगा लेकिन नहीं करा, अभी कर दो। बाकी दोस्तों फोन में आपको 5000 mAh की बैटरी मिलती है और 18 वॉट का फास्ट चार्जर मिलता है जो आता है USB Type-C पोर्ट के साथ। और सच बताओ तो ये जो 5000 mAh की आपको बैटरी प्रोवाइड की है और 18 वॉट का फास्ट चार्जर प्रोवाइड किया है विद Type-C केबल, मैं काफी ज्यादा इंप्रेस हूं। मतलब कंपटीशन के हिसाब से देखा जाए तो बहुत अच्छी चीज यहाँ पर माइक्रोमैक्स ने प्रोवाइड की है। और इससे भी जो बेस्ट चीज मुझे लगी वो है दोस्तों स्टॉक एंड्रॉइड। यस, ये फोन आता है Android 10 के साथ, जिसमें आपको एक क्लीन स्टॉक एंड्रॉइड मिलता है। तो मैं कहूंगा कि ये एक बिगेस्ट प्लस पॉइंट है माइक्रोमैक्स इन नोट 1 में कंपटीशन के हिसाब से देखा जाए। वरना कोई आपको एक डिसेंट प्रोसेसर का तो बिल्कुल सेम Honor, तो जो Honor 9X स्मार्टफोन है वो Huawei के ही यहाँ पर टाइप को देखते हो तो यहाँ पर काई होंग ग्लास टाइप दे रखा है। और अगर आप गूगल दोस्तों मैन्युफैक्चर एंड डेवलप करती है डिस्प्ले होंग के बारे में, तो आप यहाँ पे नोटिस करोगे ये एक चाइनीज कंपनी है। यहाँ पर काई होंग ग्लास टाइप दे रखा है। और अगर आप गूगल पे जाके सर्च करते हो काई होंग के बारे में तो आप यहाँ पे नोटिस करोगे ये एक चाइनीज कंपनी है। यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो ये एक चाइना बेस्ड कंपनी है जो कि दोस्तों मैन्युफैक्चर एंड डेवलप करती है डिस्प्ले कंपोनेंट्स को। अब देखो यार, ये जो बात है ना, ये छुपाई जाती है हम लोगों से, क्योंकि हमें बताया नहीं जाता और हमें बताया जाता है कि ये मेड इन इंडिया स्मार्टफोन है, इंडियन कंपनी का स्मार्टफोन है। बट अगर आप देखोगे तो वहाँ पर चाइनीज कंपोनेंट का इस्तेमाल हो रहा है और खुद चाइनीज कंपोनेंट का आप इस्तेमाल कर रहे हो और यहाँ पर आप इंडो चाइना सेंटीमेंट को यहाँ पर इस्तेमाल करके अपने फोन को बिल्कुल रियर साइड वाइज यहाँ पर अगर कैमरे का कटआउट देखोगे सेम यहाँ पर पिक्सल का कैमरा है। अब ये सारी चीजें देखो दोस्तों, अगर आप सारी चीजों को एक साथ मिलाते हो तो ये कोई इत्तेफाक तो मुझे बिल्कुल भी नहीं लगता। देखो मैं इस चीज पे, ये सारी चीजों पे 100% श्योर तो नहीं हूं, बट या जब मैंने रिसर्च करा तो मुझे कुछ डाउट लगा, मुझे कुछ शक लगा कि कहीं ना कहीं हुआवे कंपनी से यहाँ पर माइक्रोमैक्स का लिंक है और 1 साल पहले यहाँ पर इन्होंने टाई अप भी किया था। तो ये सारी चीजों को अगर आप नोटिस करोगे तो भैया कुछ ना कुछ तो गड़बड़ जरूर है। इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूं दोस्तों, इस स्मार्टफोन में कुछ ना कुछ तो गड़बड़ जरूर है, चाइना से लिंक जरूर है। तो ये कुछ चीजें हैं दोस्तों जो आपको पता होनी चाहिए, जो मेरे रिसर्चिंग के दौरान मेरे सामने आई हैं एंड कुछ लोगों ने यहाँ पे मेरी हेल्प भी की है इस चीज में, तो मैं उन लोगों को थैंक्स कहना चाहूंगा। तो ये चीज निकल के बाहर आई है जो आपको जरूर पता होना चाहिए, क्योंकि आप कंज्यूमर हो, ऑडियंस हो, और ये हमारा काम है आप लोगों को बताना। तो सवाल जरूर उठता है कि भैया हुआवे के साथ आप लोगों ने पार्टनर किया और उसके बाद उनके जैसा बिल्कुल बैक पैनल जैसा आप फोन मार्केट में लॉन्च कर रहे हो, तो
यहाँ कुछ तो गड़बड़ है, जरूर कोई ना कोई गड़बड़।
देखो अगर मैं प्रोडक्ट की बात करूं, टू बी ऑनेस्ट मैं कभी ये इंडो चाइना सेंटीमेंट्स के बारे में बात नहीं करता, मैं सिर्फ प्रोडक्ट पे फोकस करता हूं। पर जब कोई कंपनी क्लेम करे कि हाँ हमारा प्रोडक्ट 100% मेड इन इंडिया है, जो कि एब्सोल्युटली रॉन्ग है, असेंबल इन इंडिया होता है और सेंटीमेंट से खेल रहे हैं लोगों को और लोगों को थोड़ा सा बहका रहे हैं, अपने बस प्रॉफिट देख रहे हैं, तो वो चीज़ गलत है। इसलिए ये चीज़ मैं डिस्कस कर रहा हूँ। बट यहाँ पर इस फोन को लेके कुछ और सवाल है, जैसे कि आफ्टर सेल सर्विस कैसे होगी। माइक्रोमैक्स ने कि आपको 2 इयर्स तक यहाँ पर अपडेट मिलेंगे, बट माइक्रोमैक्स की अगर हम हिस्ट्री देखते हैं तो जो अपडेट है वो काफ़ी स्लो हमें मिलते हैं, इनफैक्ट कई बार तो मिलते भी नहीं है। बाकी अगर मैं प्रोडक्ट की बात करता हूँ, नो डाउट माइक्रोमैक्स का इन नोट 1 जो प्रोडक्ट है, जो प्राइसिंग है, मुझे काफ़ी अच्छा लगी। डिस्प्ले आपको काफ़ी अच्छा मिलता है, डिज़ाइन भी मैं कहूँगा काफ़ी अच्छा है।
अबे ले पकड़ तेरी गाड़ी।
Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel.
the edge that the Republicans have is that they have more of their appointees in the Supreme.
By an esteemed panel right now to discuss the implications of what's happening in the US elections so far.
Akshay Dongre on the phone line with us for more. Akshay, take us to the details, please.
Well, yes, exactly. That is what the Delhi police people in India, we have seen that their activities have already been under the radar. This entire group has been given to the Delhi police, after which the Delhi
And news just coming in from the national capital of an instance of birthday revelry gone sour and a hit-and-run case. A BMW car has run over a policeman, a constable in Sarita Vihar, crushing his leg, and it was with the intent to try and kill him and run him over that this car ran over the constable. The car itself crashed after being chased by cops.
आदमी से आज 200 आदमी तक 3000 करोड़ का टर्नओवर करने वाला क्या किया, बैनियन स्ट्रैटेजी क्या थी है? इसको बोलते हैं वाइड असॉर्टमेंट। 3 प्रकार के असॉर्टमेंट होते हैं, पहले समझते हैं, जरा आसान कर देता हूं, इजी कर देता हूं। एक होता है वाइड असॉर्टमेंट, यानी कि बहुत सारी प्रोडक्ट कैटेगरी। ये
टिंकल कॉमिक्स
15
तो तू बोल रहा है, तू नहीं।
पिछले 5 महीने से हम यहाँ रह रहे हैं। वो जो 2 डिलीवरी बॉयज है ना, उनको छोड़ के हमारे घर कोई आया नहीं है। गेस्ट आएंगे बड़े हमारे घर।
आर्यन एंजल।
ओह, हमारे घर तो आज परी आ रही है। परी।
एंजल का मतलब परी नहीं, देवदूत होता है जिससे।
वाओ, दैट्स इवन बेटर। हमारे घर देवदूत आ रही है। ग्रेट।
शौर्य, सुन समथिंग। मेरी दोस्त का ना मजाक मत उड़ा।
सानिया, मेरे 80-year-old बुक शेल्फ एंटीक को ताजमहल मत बुलाओ।
80-year-old एंटीक नहीं होता है।
हाँ, तो तू भी ले लेना तेरा 100 साल पुराना कॉफी टेबल, एंड तेरा भी तो अप्रेजल आ रहा है, एंड देन विल बी इवन।
और उसे कहाँ रखूंगी? तेरी बुकशेल्फ में, एंटीक बुकशेल्फ में।
Late in the night, alcohol was recovered from the car at the incident spot. A case has been registered under the IPC and the Motor Vehicles Act. A probe is on to nab the accused. Some of them are absconding. One we are given to understand is arrested. Nitisha Kashyap has more details. First up, is the cop all right? Because we see him bandaged, his legs crushed. Is he all right?
Well, yes, his situation is better, but he was hit by this BMW driver because the constable, he was on patrolling and the constable asked
ये व्हाट्सअप गाइस, कैसे आप सभी लोग? वेलकम बैक टू अदर गेम प्ले वीडियो। तो गाइस आज हम लोग दोबारा से खेलने जा रहे हैं माइनक्राफ्ट। तो आप सभी लोग को याद होगा कि कुछ दिनों पहले मैंने विदर को 1.10 सेकंड में मार दिया था, और उसको मारने के बाद जो मेरा कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल है ना गाइस, वो बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गया था। तो मैंने सोचा क्यों ना हम लोग एंडर ड्रैगन को भी मार डाले, क्योंकि इस टाइम पर जो मेरी प्रिपरेशन है वो बहुत ज्यादा तगड़ी हो रखी थी। आर्मर वगैरह सब में बहुत तगड़ी एन्चेंटमेंट थी। तो मैंने क्या करा, काफी सारे एंडरमैन को मार के बहुत सारी एंडर पर्ल कलेक्ट कर ली, और उस एंडर पर्ल से बना लिया मैंने आई ऑफ एंडर। और आई ऑफ एंडर के थ्रू मैंने गाइस यार ढूंढ लिया एंडर पोर्टल को। अब यार देखो जो एंडर पोर्टल है ना उसके अंदर जाने पर
जिनके होंठों पे हंसी और पांव में छाले होंगे वही लोग तो अपनी मंजिल को पाने वाले होंगे।
क्या आपको पता है कि साल 2013 से एक ऐसा इंसान है नॉन पर्सन और इसके जो फिंगरप्रिंट है ये 4 इंसान से मिलते हैं। ये बहुत ही अजीब बात है और ये अपना नाम जो बताया है वो ऑफ कोर्स फेक नाम बताया है, हरमन इमानुएल फैंकेम। बहुत अजीब सी बात है और ये इंसान आज भी अपना टाइम जेल के अंदर रोटी खा के बिता रहा है। फैक्ट नंबर 20, साल 2018 का जो दिसंबर का महीना था वो धरती के लिए सबसे खतरनाक महीनों में से एक था, क्योंकि साल के इस महीने में आसमान में धरती के सामने ही एक स्पेस रॉक जो है वो इतनी जोर से एक्सप्लोड हुआ जो कि हिरोशिमा इंसिडेंट का करीब 10 गुना ज्यादा एनर्जी के बराबर एनर्जी को एटमॉस्फेयर में रिलीज कर दिया। ये धरती के लिए एक बहुत ही भयंकर घटना थी और इस टाइप का जो इवेंट होता है, धरती के सामने से कुछ गुजरना और एटमॉस्फेयर में फटना, वो भी इतनी इंटेंसिटी का, ये जो है ये सेंचुरी में 1 या 2 या 3 बार होता है। बहुत ही अजीब बात है। फैक्ट नंबर 19, आपका जो घर है, आपको क्या पता है कि आपके घर के नीचे क्या क्या मौजूद है? ऐसे कई घर होते हैं जिसके नीचे माइंस होता है या फिर कुछ भी एंशिएंट चीज होता है, क्योंकि आपका जहाँ घर है वहाँ आज से हजारों साल पहले पता नहीं क्या होता होगा, है ना। तो ऐसे ही ब्लैक हॉक नाम का जगह है साउथ डकोटा में। यहाँ पे मस्त एक प्लॉट बन रहा था और वहाँ पे घर बनना बहुत जोरों शोरों में लगा हुआ था और कई लोग रहने भी लगे थे। और एक दिन अचानक से क्या आपको पता है कि साल 2013 से एक ऐसा इंसान है जो कि कनाडा में पाया गया और उसे द अननोन पर्सन के नाम से भी जाना जाता है, क्योंकि ये इंसान जो है ये अपना आइडेंटिटी आज तक नहीं बताया है। और ये अजीब बात है कि ये किसी को मालूम भी नहीं है कि इसके पेरेंट्स कौन है, इसकी दीदी कौन है, इसका बच्चा तो नहीं होगा ऑफ कोर्स, मींस इसके फैमिली मेंबर्स कौन है। अजीब आदमी है द अननोन पर्सन और इसके जो फिंगरप्रिंट है ये 4 इंसान से मिलते हैं। ये बहुत ही अजीब बात है और ये अपना नाम जो बताया है वो ऑफ कोर्स फेक नाम बताया है, हरमन इमानुएल फैंकेम। बहुत अजीब सी बात है और ये इंसान आज भी अपना टाइम जेल के अंदर रोटी खा के बिता रहा है। फैक्ट नंबर 20, साल 2018 का जो दिसंबर का महीना था वो धरती के लिए सबसे खतरनाक महीनों में से एक था, क्योंकि साल के इस महीने में आसमान में धरती के सामने ही एक स्पेस रॉक जो है वो इतनी जोर से एक्सप्लोड हुआ जो कि हिरोशिमा इंसिडेंट का करीब 10 गुना ज्यादा एनर्जी के बराबर एनर्जी को एटमॉस्फेयर में रिलीज कर दिया। ये धरती के लिए एक बहुत ही भयंकर घटना थी और इस टाइप का जो इवेंट होता है, धरती के सामने से कुछ गुजरना और एटमॉस्फेयर में फटना, वो भी इतनी इंटेंसिटी का, ये जो है ये सेंचुरी में 1 या 2 या 3 बार होता है। बहुत ही अजीब बात है। फैक्ट नंबर 19, आपका जो घर है, आपको क्या पता है कि आपके घर के नीचे क्या क्या मौजूद है? ऐसे कई घर होते हैं जिसके नीचे माइंस होता है या फिर कुछ भी एंशिएंट चीज होता है, क्योंकि आपका जहाँ घर है वहाँ आज से हजारों साल
क्या आपको पता है कि साल 2013 से एक ऐसा इंसान है जो कि कनाडा में पाया गया और उसे द अननोन पर्सन के नाम से भी जाना जाता है, क्योंकि ये इंसान जो है ये अपना आइडेंटिटी आज तक
What is up with us white people?
Mindfully. We can see it when we consuming with mindfulness. How can you tell what communication is healthy and what is toxic? The energy of mindfulness is a necessary ingredient in healthy communication that makes us feel bad or insecure. Returning to an awareness of the breath and the body, and bringing your full attention to what is in you and around you. This helps you notice whether the thought you just produced is healthy or unhealthy, compassionate or unkind. Conversation is a source of nourishment. We all get lonely and want to talk with someone. But when you have a conversation with another person, what that person says may be full of toxins, like hate, anger, and frustration. When you listen to what others say, you're consuming those toxins. You're bringing toxins into your consciousness and your body. That's why mindfulness of speaking and mindfulness of listening are very important. Toxic conversation can be difficult to avoid, especially at work. If it is going on around you, be aware. You need to have enough mindful awareness not to absorb these kinds of suffering. You have to protect yourself with the energy of compassion, so that when you listen, instead of consuming toxins, you're actively producing more compassion in yourself. When you listen in this way, compassion protects you and the other person suffers less. You absorb the thoughts, speech, and actions you produce, and those contained in the communications of those around you. That is a form of consumption. So when you read something, when you listen to someone, you should be careful not to allow the toxins to ruin your health and bring suffering to you and to the other person or group of people. To illustrate this truth, the Buddha used the graphic image of a cow that has a skin disease. The cow is attacked by all kinds of insects and microorganisms coming from the soil, coming from the trees, coming from the water. Without skin, a cow can't protect herself. Mindfulness is our skin. Without mindfulness, we may take in things that are toxic to our body and mind. Even when you simply drive your car through the city, you consume. The advertisements hit your eyes, and you're forced to consume them. You hear sounds. You may even say things that are the products of too much toxic consumption. We have to protect ourselves with mindful consumption. Mindful communication is part of this. We can communicate in such a way as to solidify the peace and compassion in ourselves and bring joy to others. Relationships don't survive without the right food. Many of us suffer because of difficult communication. We feel misunderstood, especially by those we love. In a relationship, we are nourishment for each other. So we have to select the kind of food we offer the other person, the kind of food that can help our relationships thrive. Everything, including love, hate, and suffering, needs food to continue. If suffering continues, it's because we keep feeding our suffering. Every time we speak without mindful awareness, we are feeding our suffering.
Will your child win free
With mindful awareness, we can look into the nature of our suffering and find out what kind of food we have been supplying to keep it alive.
online?
When we find the source of nourishment for our suffering, we can cut off that supply, and our suffering will fade. Often, a romantic relationship begins beautifully, but then, because we don't know how to nourish our love, the relationship begins to die. Communication can bring it back to life. Every thought you produce in your head, in your heart, in China they say in your belly, feeds that relationship. When you produce a thought that carries suspicion, anger, fear, irritation. That thought is not nourishing to you or to the other person. If the relationship has become difficult, it's because we've nourished our judgment and our anger, and we haven't nourished our compassion. One day in Plum Village, the French retreat center where I live, I gave a talk about how we needed to nourish our loved ones by practicing loving communication. I spoke about our relationships as flowers that need watering with love and communication to grow. There was a woman sitting near the front who was crying the whole time. After the talk, I went to her husband and I said, "My dear friend, your flower needs some watering." Her husband had been at the talk and knew about loving speech, but sometimes we all need a friend to remind us. So, after lunch, the man took his wife for a drive in the country. They just had an hour or so, but he focused on watering the good seeds the whole drive. When they came back, she seemed completely transformed, very happy and joyful. Their children were very surprised, because in the morning, when their parents had left, they'd been sad and irritable. So, in just an hour, you can transform another person and yourself, just with the practice of watering the good seeds. This is applied mindfulness in action. It's not theoretical. Nourishing and healing communication is the food of our relationships. Sometimes one cruel utterance can make the other person suffer for many years, and we will suffer for many years too. In a state of anger or fear, we may say something that can be poisonous and destructive. If we swallow poison, it can stay within us for a long time, slowly killing our relationship. We may not even know what we said or did that started to poison the relationship. But we have the antidote: mindful compassion and loving communication. Love, respect, and friendship all need food to survive. With mindfulness, we can produce thoughts, speech, and actions that will feed our relationships and help them grow and thrive. 2. Communicating with yourself. Loneliness is the suffering of our time. Even if we're surrounded by others, we can feel very alone. We are lonely together. There's a vacuum inside us. It makes us feel uncomfortable, so we try to fill it up by connecting with other people. We believe that if we're able to connect, the feeling of loneliness will disappear. Technology supplies us with many devices to help us stay connected. But even when we're connected, we continue to feel lonely. We check our email, send text messages, and post updates several times a day. We want to share and receive. We might spend our whole day connecting, but not reduce the loneliness we feel. We all hunger for love, but we don't know how to generate love in order to feed ourselves with it. When we're empty, we use technology to try to dissipate the feeling of loneliness, but it doesn't work. We have the internet, email, video conferencing, texting and posting, apps, letters, and cell phones. We have everything. And yet it's not at all certain that we have improved our communication. Many of us have cell phones.
Just a few clicks,
we want to be in touch with other people, but we shouldn't put too much faith in our phones.
Problems are solved.
I don't have one, but I don't feel out of touch with the world. In fact, without a mobile device, I have more time for myself and for others. You believe that having your phone helps you to communicate, but if the content of your speech is not authentic, talking or texting on a device doesn't mean you're communicating with another person. We believe too much in the technologies of communication. Behind all these instruments, we have the mind, the most fundamental instrument for communication. If our minds are blocked, there is no device that will make up for our inability to communicate with ourselves or others. Connecting internally. Many of us spend a lot of time in meetings or emailing with others, and not a lot of time communicating with ourselves. The result is that we don't know what is going on within us. It may be a mess inside. How, then, can we communicate with another person? We think that with all our technological devices we can connect, but this is an illusion. In daily life, we're disconnected from ourselves. We walk, but we don't know that we're walking. We're here, but we don't know that we're here. We're alive, but we don't know that we're alive. Throughout the day, we lose ourselves. To stop and communicate with yourself is a revolutionary act. You sit down and stop that state of being lost, of not being yourself. You begin by just stopping whatever you're doing, sitting down, and connecting with yourself. This is called mindful awareness. Mindfulness is full awareness of the present moment. You don't need an iPhone or a computer. You just need to sit down and breathe in and out. In just a few seconds, you can connect with yourself. You know what is going on in your body, your feelings, your emotions, and your perceptions. Digital purpose. When you don't feel you can communicate well in person, or wonder if what you say will be hard for the other person to hear, sometimes the best way to communicate is to write a letter or an email. If you can write a letter that's full of understanding and compassion, then during the time of writing that letter, you will nourish yourself. Everything you write will be nourishing for the person you are writing to, and first of all, for you. The other person hasn't received the email or letter yet, but while typing the letter, you are nourishing yourself, because what you're saying in the letter is full of compassion and understanding. Especially at the beginning of your practice, it may be easier for you to practice mindful communication in writing. Writing this way is good for our health. We can send an email, we can text, and we can talk on the phone and use mindful communication. If our message is full of understanding and compassion, we'll be able to remove fear and anger from the other person. So next time you hold the phone, look at it and remember that its purpose is to help you communicate with compassion. Usually, we are in a hurry to send our emails and texts. As soon as we finish writing them, we press send and they are gone. But there's no need to rush. We always have time for at least one in-breath and out-breath before we pick up the phone, or before we press send on a text or email. If we do this, there is a much greater chance that we will be putting more compassionate communication out into the world. Coming home. When we begin to practice mindful awareness, we start the path home to ourselves. Home is the place where loneliness disappears. When we're home, we feel warm, comfortable, safe, fulfilled. We've gone away from our homes for a long time, and our homes have become neglected. But the path back home is not long. Home is inside us. Going home requires only sitting down and being with yourself, accepting the situation as it is. Yes, it might be a mess in there, but we accept it because we know we have left home for a long time. So now we're home. With our in-breath and our out-breath, our mindful breathing, we begin to tidy up our homes. Communicating with the breath. The path home begins with your breath. If you know how to breathe, you can learn how to walk, how to sit, how to eat your meal, and how to work in mindfulness so that you can begin to know yourself. When you breathe in, you come back to yourself. When you breathe out, you release any tension. Once you can communicate with yourself, you'll be able to communicate outwardly with more clarity. The way in is the way out. Mindful breathing is a means of communication, just like a phone. It promotes communication between the mind and the body. It helps us know what we're feeling. We're breathing all the time, but we rarely pay attention to our breath, unless our breathing is uncomfortable or restricted. With mindful breathing, when we breathe in, we know we're breathing in. When we breathe out, we know we're breathing out. When we breathe in, we bring our attention to our in-breath. To remind ourselves to pay attention to our breath, we can say silently, breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. The air is entering my body. The air is leaving my body. Follow your in-breath and out-breath all the way through. Suppose your in-breath lasts 4 seconds. During the time of breathing in, allow your attention to rest entirely on your in-breath without interruption. During the time of breathing out, focus entirely on your out-breath. You are with your in-breath and your out-breath. You are not with anything else. You are your in-breath and your out-breath. Breathing in and breathing out is a practice of freedom. When we focus our attention on our breath, we release everything else, including worries or fears about the future, and regrets or sorrows about the past. Focusing on the breath, we notice what we're feeling in the present moment. We can do this throughout the day, enjoying the 24 hours that have been given us to breathe in and out. We can be there for ourselves. It takes only a few seconds to breathe in and set yourself free. We know when others are breathing in and out mindfully. We can see it when we look at them. They look free. If we're overloaded with fear, anger, regret, or anxiety, we're not free, no matter what position we hold in society or how much money we have. Real freedom only comes when we're able to release our suffering and come home. Freedom is the most precious thing there is. It is the foundation of happiness, and it is available to us with each conscious breath. Non-thinking and non-talking. Happiness is possible when you're in communication with yourself. To do this, you have to leave your telephone behind. When you attend a meeting or an event, you turn off your telephone. Why? Because you want to communicate and absorb others' communication. It is the same when communicating with yourself. This kind of communication is not possible with the phone. We're used to thinking a lot and talking a lot. But to communicate with ourselves, we need to practice non-thinking and non-talking. Non-thinking is a very important practice. Of course, thinking and talking can be productive too, especially when our minds and feelings are clear. But a lot of our thinking is caught up in dwelling on the past, trying to control the future, generating misperceptions, and worrying about what others are thinking. A misperception can happen in a moment, in a flash. As soon as we have a perception, we're caught by it. So anything we say or do based on that perception can be dangerous. It's better not to say or do anything. That's why in the Zen tradition, they say the paths of talking and of thinking should be cut off. The path of speech is cut off because if you continue to talk, you continue to be caught in your words. Mindful breathing is a practice of non-thinking and non-talking. Without thinking and talking, there is no obstacle to get in the way of our enjoyment of the present moment. It's enjoyable to breathe in, to breathe out. It's enjoyable to sit, to walk, to eat breakfast, to take a shower, to clean the bathroom, to work in the vegetable garden. When we stop talking and thinking, and we listen mindfully to ourselves, one thing we will notice is our greater capacity and opportunities for joy. The other thing that happens when we stop thinking and talking, and we begin listening to ourselves, is that we notice the suffering present in our lives. There may be tension and pain in our bodies. We may have old pains and fears, or new pains and fears, which we have hidden under our talking and texting and thinking. Mindfulness lets us listen to the pain, the sorrow, and the fear inside. When we see that some suffering or some pain is coming up, we don't try to run away from it. In fact, we have to go back and take care of it. We're not afraid of being overwhelmed, because we know how to breathe and how to walk so as to generate enough energy of mindfulness to recognize and take care of the suffering. If you have enough mindfulness generated by the practice of mindful breathing and walking, you're no longer afraid to be with yourself. If I am free of needing a mobile phone, it's because I carry mindfulness with me, like a guardian angel on my shoulder. The angel is always with me when I practice. It helps me be unafraid of whatever suffering or pain arises. It's much more important to keep your mindfulness with you than to keep your mobile phone. You think that you're safe when carrying your phone, but the truth is that mindfulness will do much more than a phone to protect you, to help you suffer less, and to improve your communication. Come back. The quiet of non-thinking and non-talking gives us the space to truly listen to ourselves. We don't have to try to get away from our suffering. We don't have to cover up what is unpleasant in us. In fact, we try to be there for ourselves, to understand, so that we can transform. Please do come back home and listen. If you don't communicate well with yourself, you cannot communicate well with another person. Come back again and again, and communicate lovingly with yourself. That is the practice. You have to go back to yourself and listen to the happiness you may have in this moment. Listen to the suffering in your body and in your mind, and learn how to embrace it and bring relief. Communicating with the body. As long as we have mindfulness with us, we can breathe mindfully throughout the day as we go about our daily activities. But our mindfulness will be stronger and will get more healing and communicate more successfully if we take the time to pause and sit quietly for a few moments. When a newly freed Nelson Mandela came to France for a visit, a journalist asked him what he would most like to do. He said, "Sit down and do nothing." Since his release from prison and his official entry into politics, he hadn't had any time to just enjoy sitting. We should make time to sit, even if it's for only a few minutes a day, because sitting is a pleasure. Whenever we're restless and don't know what to do, that is a good time to sit down. It's good to sit when we're peaceful, too, as a way of nurturing a habit and practice of sitting. When we stop and sit, we can begin right away to follow our in-breath and out-breath. Immediately, we can enjoy breathing in and breathing out, and everything gets a little bit better because the present moment becomes available to us. Breathe in a way that gives you pleasure. When you sit and breathe mindfully, your mind and body finally get to communicate and come together. This is a kind of miracle, because usually the mind is in one place and the body in another. The mind is caught in the details of your projects to be done today, your sorrow about the past, or your anxiety about the future. Your mind isn't anywhere near your body. When you breathe in mindfully, there is a happy reunion between body and mind. This doesn't take any fancy technique. Just by sitting and breathing mindfully, you're bringing your mind home to your body. Your body is an essential part of your home. When you spend many hours with your computer, you may forget entirely that you have a body until it's too achy, stiff, or tense for you to ignore. You need to take breaks and return to your body before it gets to that point. To bring more awareness to the connection between body and mind, you can say to yourself, breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I release all the tension in my body. Take yourself for a walk. Mindful walking is a wonderful way to bring together body and mind. It also allows you the additional to communicate with something outside yourself that is nourishing and healing, the earth. When you take a step with full awareness that you are taking a step on the ground and the earth, there is no distinction between body and mind. Your body is your breathing. Your body is your feet. Your body is your lungs. And when you are connected with body, feet, breath, and lungs, you are home. Every step brings you home to the here and the now, so you can connect with yourself, your body, and your feelings. That is a real connection. You don't need a device that tells you how many friends you have, or how many steps you've walked, or how many calories you've burned. When you walk mindfully, integrate your breath with each step, and focus on your foot connecting with the ground. You're aware that you're making a step, and you stop thinking altogether. When you think, you get lost in your thinking. You don't know what's going on in your body, in your feelings, or in the world. If you think while you walk, you're not really walking. Instead, focus your attention on your breath and your step. Be aware of your foot, its movement, and the ground you're touching. While you focus your attention on making the step, you are free, because in that time, your mind is only with the step you are making. Your mind is no longer carried off into the future or the past. You take one step, and you are free. While you walk, you can say to yourself, I have arrived. I am home. These words are not a mere declaration or an affirmation practice. They are a realization. You don't need to run anywhere. Many of us have run all our lives. Now we get to live life properly. Home is the here and the now, where all the wonders of life are already available, where the wonder that is your body is available. You can't arrive fully in the here and the now unless you invest your whole body and mind into the present moment. If you haven't arrived 100%, stop where you are and don't take another step. Stay there and breathe until you're sure you have arrived 100%. Then you can smile a smile of victory. It's probably best to do that only when you are enjoying mindful walking alone. If you are around other people, you may create a traffic jam. You don't need an app or an outsider to tell you whether you have arrived. You will know you have arrived because you will recognize that you're comfortable being. When you walk from the parking lot to your office, go home in each step. Recover yourself and connect with yourself during every step. No matter where you're going, you can walk as a free person on this planet Earth and enjoy every step. Walking on the earth heals our alienation. Many of us live in a way that alienates us from the earth and from our own bodies. Most of us live very isolated from each other. We humans can get extremely lonely. We're separated not just from the earth and from each other, but from our own selves. We spend many hours every day forgetting we have bodies. But if we begin to practice breathing mindfully and listening to the body, we can also begin to look deeply and see that the earth is all around us. We touch the earth, and we are no longer alienated from our own bodies or from the body of the earth. We commonly think of the earth as our environment, but looking more deeply, we see that the earth is a wonderful living reality. Often, when we feel alone, we forget that we can connect directly with the earth. When we bring mindfulness to our steps, these steps can bring us back in touch with our own bodies and with the body of the earth. These steps can rescue us from our alienation. Connecting to our suffering. When we begin to breathe mindfully and listen to our bodies, we become aware of feelings of suffering that we've been ignoring. We hold these feelings in our bodies as well as our minds. Our suffering has been trying to communicate with us, to let us know it is there, but we have spent a lot of time and energy ignoring it. When we begin breathing mindfully, feelings of loneliness, sadness, fear, and anxiety may come up. When that happens, we don't need to do anything right away. We can just continue to follow our in-breath and our out-breath. We don't tell our fear to go away. We recognize it. We don't tell our anger to go away. We acknowledge it. These feelings are like a small child tugging at our sleeves. Pick them up and hold them tenderly. Acknowledging our feelings without judging them